Welcome to Mixternal Messaging. I'm your host, Cynthia Hayes. And today I am so excited to be joined by the co-founders of RelateSearch, David Armendariz and Sara Luther. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
It's wonderful to be here.
I'm excited to dig into today's topic with you guys. We want to give a special shout out to Aaron. He's currently stalking us with a camera and taking photos and posting them. Very exciting. He's doing all the things. So maybe David, start with you and tell me a little bit about yourself and your professional expertise and how you got here.
Absolutely. So I was lucky enough to find recruiting early on in my career. Worked for a company based out of here in Atlanta for about 20 years and worked a national practice of several things: supply chain, technology, operations. And 18 months ago, was lucky enough to start RelateSearch with Sara here. So it's been a fun ride and using a lot of what we learned in the 20 years we've worked together here in the last year and a half.
Yeah. Wow. You guys you're like work family.
Oh, we are. No joke. We are family. Yes.
Yes.
That's real. Sara, what's your background?
Dave and I grew up together, just in different states. So parallel career paths, same deals, 20 years in search. I've always specialized in HR recruiting, so placing HR leaders for 20 years. And Dave and I decided to take the plunge and leave more of the corporate world of larger recruiting to start RelateSearch, and we couldn't be happier.
That takes a lot of courage and tenacity to do. Tell me about what made you want to go out on your own and start RelateSearch.
Well, I think a couple things, but it's funny because a lot of times when we tell people the story, they have the same reaction. God, that's so courageous. How brave you must be. And honestly, I don't feel that way at all. And it's mostly because of this partnership. It wasn't scary. It wasn't anything that most people might think going out on your own might be, because of not only the relationship that we have, but also just the confidence that I have in Sara's ability and what I've seen her do in her career and how I thought our partnership would work. So it's been really incredible to already see that take shape in the last 18 months. But it just felt like the right time. We felt like the market was moving in a direction where a lot of organizations that we work with in the SMB space were looking to specialists and looking for boutique firms that they could rely on. And so we felt like we could take everything that we learned, all the great experience that we had, and provide that in that way. And we have.
Yeah. What makes RelateSearch unique?
It goes back to the story of why we launched, I think, and you were very kind in saying what you just said. But I think also what was really important for us was creating a search firm that had culture and meaning and impact. And for us, putting our people first was the most critical part of the process. And we knew if we take care of our people, everything else will fall into place. And our industry can tend to be highly competitive, almost aggressive sometimes in some places. And we wanted to set out to create a safe place that is fun, authentic, and people just enjoy going to work every day. And so that being our mission has really led us to do what we think we can do best, which is, set culture and recruit top talent nationally.
Wow. Yeah. So tell me what exactly RelateSearch does.
Yeah, great question. So we specialize in bringing top talent to organizations across the country. Most of our clients fit in the SMB space, but we have several that are larger than that. And whether it's an HR professional, supply chain or manufacturing professional, a sales executive, someone in marketing even, and accounting and finance, we have specialists in each of those areas that can go out, recruit that talent, and supply that talent to our client organizations. And that is the transaction piece of what we do. What we do that's even more important is provide that experience for all of those parties involved. Because as anyone who has ever searched for a job knows, searching for a job is a nightmare. If you've ever hired someone before, you know that hiring someone can be a nightmare. And so we really feel like our job is to come in and try to get everything else out of the way that prevents great companies from hiring great people and make that experience as positive and as exceptional as it can be.
Yeah, That's great. I'm sold.
Yeah. Good. Who do you need to hire?
No, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So 18 months ago, you launched this beautiful thing called Relate Search with a vision to really foster this culture you desired and to make these connections that are really meaningful and long lasting. It sounds like. What were some of those like early, oh, wait, kind of moments that you might have run into?
Well, Dave has to slow me down and peel me off the ceiling quite often because this goes back to our relationship being what it is, which is a great balance for each other because I tend to want to go and drive and get things done. And Dave is a strategic planner. And so together it's a beautiful marriage. So that, I think for me, that was a little bit of the stop, pause, let's actually plan and have a strategy in place. What's our value proposition, right? What's our internal and external messaging? Do those look like they're the same thing? Yeah. Let's just actually be really thoughtful and intentional versus just doing exactly what we've done for 20 years, right? Because it comes second. The recruiting part is second nature to us. Now we're actually building something.
Yes.
Right? And it's very different than just doing the job of
It's a different muscle to flex.
100%.
Different muscle to flex, absolutely. And one that we both thoroughly enjoyed. But to Sarah's point, it's, when you're building a brand from scratch, it's not just about, getting two people together that want to work together. And it's all of those things that we had to stop and ask ourselves, okay, do we know what we're doing, first off? And then secondly, what are our guts telling us? And third, what we ended up finding in most of those situations, we had been so lucky to be trained and mentored by experts in the industry that were so gracious in teaching us things that we didn't even know that we knew. And so those lessons kept coming back to the surface again as we kept encountering those situations. And we found ourselves not knowing what we thought we knew, but just in our guts knowing what we felt like we should do.
What the next step was.
And many of those people being supportive and cheerleaders for us on the sidelines as this was happening just made it that much more special.
Yeah, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
As you're considering how to structure things and you have multiple audiences that you're talking to, and you touched for a minute on the internal versus the external messaging, like who are all the stakeholders you have to take into consideration?
Yeah, the beautiful thing about our industry, at the end of the day, we're sales professionals, right? But we're not selling a product. It's kind of a 360-degree sale. So we have our candidates who are looking to make a move or potentially not, and until they talk to us. We have our clients.
They just don't know it.
They have no idea what's coming. Then we have our clients who we're placing the top talent within our client companies. And then we have our people internally, and we are only as good in a service industry such as ours that's so high touch as our people and the talent within our organization. So. And then we have each other, right, as leaders within the organization. So when you talk about stakeholders, I think people automatically go straight to the people who are paying your bills, which is the clients. But for us, we truly believe our internal employees are our key stakeholders, number one priority. And from there, everything else falls into place the way it should.
Yeah, you're speaking my language.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
it took us a second to get there, but we got there pretty fast. If we've learned anything over the last 20 years, it's your people are all, it's so cliche that your people are the number one asset, but they are. That's it.
They really are.
They really are.
And they can be fantastic ambassadors for your brand.
100%.
If they see that what you're promising externally is what they're experiencing.
Yep.
Internally,
you got it.
Right?
You have to deliver it, though, to your point. You can't just say it. You've got to walk the walk. And that's something that we're lucky in the fact that we see so many companies hire so many people. And we talk to those same people who many times don't have great experiences where they're working. So over the 20 years, we've been able to take all of these, pieces of information and formulate it into what we hope is a place and an environment where we can limit the things that get in the way, and we can really elevate and bring the things that we know people care about, that are important to them. And even as the workforce changes, we're able to adapt how we look at those things given what our employee population looks like.
Right. So what are some of the key considerations you guys take into account as you're thinking about the employee experience with Relate Search? Like, what are your North Star that you want to make sure you hold true to for them?
It's funny, Dave and I we talk to each other and see each other every 5 minutes, but we formally meet once a month to actually talk about the business from a strategic standpoint. And in our first meeting, we were talking about, okay, how do we format, or how should we structure this? Obviously, that was Dave saying that because, again, he's the planner. And he said, you know what? We keep talking about we're people first. Let's talk about our people first. And so we have the list of our employees at the top, and okay, how are they doing? What do they need? What barriers can we remove from them for them? And that is our North Star, literally, is we are making them first in every decision that we make. Every time we make a call on something, it's how's this going to impact our team?
Yeah. Which is, not everyone does that. It does take that intentionality, like you mentioned.
It's walking the walk. You can't say you're going to do that and then talk about financials first. Not that the financials aren't important. They're very important.
That's how you pay your people.
That's how you pay your people. Exactly.
To your people too.
Exactly. But even some of the initiatives, some of the programs that we've started, probably earlier, I would argue, than we ever imagined that we would, like a mentor program and other ideas, they've all come from our people. They've said, this is important to us. This is important to us. We need help here. And so as we structurally build the business, it's around, yes, reaching a bottom line that we're all happy and comfortable with, but also it's how can we empower the best people that we have to do what they want to do? Because in our business, it is all about them reaching whatever goal they've set for themselves. That goal is always higher than anything we would ever ask of them.
They're challenging themselves.
Absolutely.
So what better thing to be able to do as a leader than just move some of those things out of the way and let someone who's already an A player be an A+ player?
That's amazing. Yeah.
And we often talk about how lucky we are that they talk as if this is their company too. Yeah. And it is, right? Everyone's got a stake in this thing to be successful. So while we might be the owners of the organization, truly everyone feels like they are a part of this thing and wanting it to be successful, not just about their success, which in our industry can be very siloed.
Yes.
Can feel like it's just about you. But we've really, I think through this intentional process of making sure we're putting our people first, we've really been able to build camaraderie and this sense of ownership without having to say anything. I mean, it's just been very natural, a natural part of the progression that we've seen. We feel very lucky about that.
There was, and it's funny, sometimes you don't realize that until someone on your team says something. One of our team members was interviewing someone else that we are actually going to be hiring here in the next few months. And in that interview, she said to that person, it's so great that this is the last time I'm going to have to restart my business again. And she said that to us, and like we almost fell out of our chairs. Like we never thought that. It never even entered our mind. It took her, and from her perspective, and then saying that to someone else in an interview. I mean, how powerful is that? To bring that back to us and us go, oh yeah, that's right. We don't have to. How amazing is that?
Right?
Yeah.
What a gift to have that when it's authentic.
Yeah,
it really resonates through every conversation and every interaction people have with your brand, with who are your people, and the services that you provide. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a little pause here. Okay. When we come back, I would love to dig into the different generational differences you're seeing in your industry and how you're being mindful of that messaging. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Mixternal Messaging in just a moment.
Mixternal Messaging, Marcom that roars, is brought to you by Liger. Tired of your brand message being a whimper instead of a roar? Mixternal Messaging cracks the code on the secret weapon of B2B success, uniting your internal and external brand narrative. We're taking deep dives into the challenges and strategies to craft a message that resonates, both inside your company and with your clients. No fluff, no theory, just real stories and actionable insights from the trenches. We'll be interviewing marketing and communication rock stars, hearing their triumphs and struggles in the world of mixternal messaging, across industries from tech to healthcare. Ready to make your brand roar? Tune in to Mixternal Messaging, Marcom that roars, a Liger podcast. For more information, visit ligerpartners.com and follow us on our social media.
Welcome back to Mixternal Messaging. I'm your host, Cynthia Hayes, and today I am joined by the co-founders of Relate Search. So excited to be continuing this conversation because you all see and interact with multiple generations, multiple types of messaging as you look externally with who you're talking to and how you're talking to them. Talk to me about like some of the similarities or some of the differences or the shifts that you've seen even. I would love to hear, David, just
Sure.
get a glimpse into what you're dealing with these days.
Yeah, so I think we have the benefit of recruiting and messaging opportunities to people at all ages. So 5 years out of school, all the way till right before they're ready to retire. So it's everyone in the workforce, right? Your boomers all the way to your Gen Z. And so, there's been a lot of conversation in the last few years about what it's like for millennials to be in the workplace and what it's like for Gen Z to be in the workplace and the differences. And you see it on LinkedIn or on Instagram all the time about how, people within an office can butt heads and what that's like. And a lot of that is, stereotypes about people of a certain age and what's important to them. I think what's interesting from our standpoint is over the last few years, especially coming out of the COVID experience, is how so many similarities are being found between those groups now. And so I think we're seeing a lot more of that than there used to be. And I think people appreciate overall lifestyle as much as they do a hard day's work. And so I think the things that we used to consider and the things that we used to think that are so important for some groups may not be as important as they used to be.
Well, they probably thought those things were important to them. And then I think we all had to do a little
self-reflection
and had the time and space to do it too, as things slowed down. So
Absolutely.
Realizing, hey, in this new world, or you prove to yourself, maybe I can operate a little differently and be more flexible than I thought I could, or this could work. Technology certainly caught up with us. We forced technology to adapt a lot faster, right, than it was. So as you're engaging with candidates, what are you hearing from them? Is it slight nuances in the generation still, or is it still pretty much a consistent message now?
It's funny. We never, ever had as part of our initial interview questions a discussion around how often you want to be in the office, right? That was never mentioned. It was just a given that it was going to be 5 days a week in the office. And what we're finding is a lot of companies now are bringing people back on site. We used to have plenty of searches that were fully remote, and that is dwindling pretty quickly. But we're also finding that our talent, our candidates actually want a hybrid schedule. They miss the water cooler talk. They miss the lunches. They miss the camaraderie that you have when you get together in an office, and the lively discussions that you can have and the culture that you can continue to build. And so it's very interesting because it went from one extreme to the other. It went from 5 days in office to completely remote. And it was very hard for people to lose that remote flexibility. But then when companies started forcing it, and you saw Amazon is bringing everybody back in-house, that was a big move. I think candidates are actually embracing it now. So the ideal situation for them is still 2 to 3 days on site, 2 to 3 days from home, and still have that ability to take your child to the doctor or do a load of laundry from home, whatever the case is. And people find that they're still more productive at home, but they really do miss being part of a team and being in the office. So it's kind of transformed, quite a bit over the last couple of years in particular. But it's a nice. We use the word hybrid more often than we've ever used it before.
Oh, sure, yeah. It'll be a word that's banned from everyone's vocabulary.
It's true.
In 5 years.
Yes.
We'll be so tired of that word.
As much as you say you're on mute. Yes.
That's right. That's totally right.
And it's funny too, because candidates, regardless of what generation they're in, they're willing to give up money, benefits, and we've seen it in studies, right? Or even career progression for the lifestyle that they want to have now. And so it's something that we now talk with every candidate about, make sure we understand that piece. And honestly, for us, it's a good conversation because we get to know them better. If they want to be hybrid, we really get to understand why. And it's not about them at work. It's about what that lifestyle is. And if we understand the lifestyle, then we can better fit them with the right opportunity.
Right. Yeah. And that's every generation you're kind of interacting with right now. That's across the board. So. Yes. I
would say so. And still some of the like standard nuances are still there. You find more of, the Gen Z folks that are interested in more of the flexibility and more, work that's maybe on a contract basis or not long-term or permanent. And then, with folks from the Boomer and Gen X generations, yes, they want something that's a little bit more stable and stability. And, that piece is important. But again, more similarities now than we've seen probably in the past.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we were all forced to kind of operate in the same way for a while. So that leveled the playing field a little bit. So as you're crafting messaging for your candidates or talking to employers who are now shifting their, MO, what are some considerations that you have to take in as you're thinking through how your brand is going to show up differently and why they would choose you in this moment versus a competitor?
That's a good question. We always talk about how we are sharing the story of our clients, right? So we are flexing how we're positioning the search based on our clients and what their needs are. And so I think it's a little less about us and more about them and the messaging that we're trying to share with them. But we lead oftentimes with, it's a remote opportunity, it's a hybrid role. If it is truly all on site in an industry that is not usually all on site, we do try and have that discussion with the client to understand why. And a lot of times it comes back to the culture within the organization. And that's the story then that we're sharing, right? We're always tying it back to the culture, because at the end of the day, that tends to be the number one priority for candidates, is understanding if it's the right culture fit. Right. And oftentimes remote, hybrid, or on-site is telling you a lot about the culture of the company and the reasoning behind it.
Yes.
And many times based on the search, because of that, the messaging is almost crafted in a way that it's going to attract a certain type of person based on where they're at in their career because of the things that opportunity provides. So one thing we won't do is try to position a role and create messaging around an opportunity for a customer that doesn't really fit a generational, from a generational perspective. It really is about just showcasing the best that we can about the client. And because of that, the things that come to the surface are the things that sort of candidate from whatever generation that might be is going to be interested and attracted to.
It aligns with that story. That
Right.
person aligns with the
Exactly.
story that you're telling. Yeah. Which
Exactly.
really does go back to your people first approach, right? You're thinking about, what is this person's experience going to be when they show up day one or year 5 in this position, and will it be a good fit for them?
Right.
And crafting the story around that, just like you do for your own employees.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of the things I love most about what we do. Yeah. It's taking that story that the client may not know how to put together, or may not really even understand the value that it is, what that story is. And we get to bring it to the surface, we get to craft it, we get to take it out and advertise it in a way that only recruiters can.
Yes.
And especially in the SMB space, where these organizations don't have massive marketing companies or internal marketing groups that can provide that for them. We get to be that extension, and that's exciting.
Yeah. That is really exciting. That's one of my favorite parts about being in marketing. Is pulling those stories, like what does make you really unique person that I'm talking to, and let me tell that in a way back to you that you've never heard before, but still resonates and is totally authentic and true. And watching them light up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is us. Yes, it is. It is, exactly. You should share that with more people.
We do have a value prop. No idea.
It is amazing. And I'm sure you've had to do that for yourselves at some point with let's stop and reflect and make sure these things are true, gut check. And then how, when we put it on paper as though we were someone else.
Well, and it's funny, we do this for a living. This is what we do and what we love. Yeah. And when we were putting our value prop together, we had this whole idea. And on one of our first trips, we went and met a client in DC, and we sat down with him, and he asked us, okay, what's your value prop? And we told him, and he's like, nope, that's not it. Let me tell you what it is. And he told it to us, and we were like, wow, you're right. Yeah, we didn't think about it that way. And so it's, we're not sitting here as people that know how to do it right all the time. We need that outside perspective, just like anybody else does.
It's really difficult to do it for yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
It is. It really
is. It's hard to not be stuck in your own box.
You're too close to it. Yeah. It's our child. So
and you have all the baggage that came with it.
100%.
You're like, that's the old. What is the new? What does the new look like?
And don't overcomplicate it, right? It's so the word, not to, share the end of the story, but it all came down to one word for this client, and he said authenticity. That's what separates you from other firms. And we were like, that's half the reason why we came up with the name Relate for Relate Search, right? That is the reason we came up, not half.
Yeah.
So, it is very helpful sometimes to take a step back and let someone else tell you what you need to know.
Yes. Yeah. We all need those people.
Yeah.
We do. We're very thankful for that conversation.
Especially when you're building foundational things.
Yes.
It's huge. And it's not to say it won't shift later, or nuances won't enter the picture, or new skills get added. So now you're able to do, that but it's still the core and the essence. Yeah.
And it helps us understand our clients better, actually, because here we are trying to run at the speed we want to run, doing what we know how to do so well. And we still need help from other people to help us do it for ourselves. And we're like, okay, now we're in the seats. We understand how that feels. And we're trying to do 1,000,001 things. Sometimes that, as important as it is, just doesn't get, moved to the front of the line of the priorities all the time.
It doesn't get the attention it needs because you're trying to do the business.
You're trying to do the business. Exactly. So it was definitely one of those like aha moments in our first 18 months of like, we need to continue to do this. We need to continue to ask our clients. We're really big on surveying not only our clients, but our candidates and really getting feedback from them. On what we did well, but also what the experience was like. And so we can continue as the business grows and evolves to really kind of continue to piece that together.
Right.
Because we understand how important it is to keep your pulse on what that is.
Yes, and that the only way is to ask, and that can be scary.
Sure.
But
it is.
Sometimes you don't want to hear the answer.
Or you're afraid you don't. You're like, oh, well, that wasn't so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
Usually.
But the feedback's needed. The feedback is absolutely needed.
It is, because we all have blind spots too, and make assumptions about the impact a choice will have. And then we don't know unless we stop and ask. And then, that humility that comes with receiving feedback and then acting on it, as best you can, as quickly as you can. Yeah. That's really helpful. Yeah. Okay. So I've warned you. I have a final question for you before we wrap up. Liger likes to make our clients known. We want them to be known in all the right places for all the right reasons. Right. What would you like to be known for?
The word that instantly comes to my mind is impact. We just want to make an impact on people's lives. And that's, a little easier in our industry. We're changing people's careers, right? But it's also an impact on our internal associates in addition to our clients and candidates. Yes. So I think creating a place where people enjoy working, going back to the beginning of the conversation, and just truly making an impact on people's lives.
That's lovely. Yeah.
And we're lucky enough that we get to actually see that, right? We get to introduce these opportunities to candidates, and they get to take them, and then they grow their careers, and we follow their careers, but we also follow them. Like we follow their engagements and their weddings and their first house and their kids and all of these milestone events in their lives, because they're not just our candidates. They're now connections. They're people that mean something, right? It's a meaningful relationship, and then to see that in our team is something next level. It's one of the things we love the most is, when they come in and have an exceptional year and they get to do this thing they've always wanted to do, or take the trip they've always wanted to take, or whatever it is that's important to them, to see them bask in the results of their hard work and effort. There's nothing better than that.
That's fantastic. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This was so
We've loved
great.
it.
Love it. We'll have to be longtime friends now.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely right.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of Mixternal Messaging. I'll see you next time.